Ghislaine Maxwell just did the one thing Donald Trump was worried about most. That is implicate him in her crimes. It is the reason that she is in a low-security, 5-star hotel-type prison right now. Why she gets DoorDash, a puppy, and yoga classes. It's because Donald Trump wanted her quiet. But Ghislaine Maxwell can't help the fact that Epstein documents continue to reveal Donald Trump's crimes and incriminate him. And that is exactly what was exposed over a secret meeting between Ghislaine Maxwell and Donald Trump that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into the secret meeting and how Maxwell from prison is implicating Donald Trump, I want to start with a breakdown of the latest reporting that you need to know context for this most recent development that comes from Lawrence O'Donnell right here.
Mr. Epstein was a frequent guest at Mar-a-Lago parties. A woman who said Mr. Epstein trafficked her in the late 1990s and early 2000s recalled attending at least a half a dozen of the parties beginning when she was 17. She told the New York Times that the invitations she received when she was 17 were, quote, to be Donald Trump's guest at Mar-a-Lago. According to one invitation she shared with the Times, the parties were open bar and no one checked IDs. She said Mr. Trump was always all over them, she recalled. A 20-year-old model who attended a Trump party at Mar-a-Lago told the New York Times, I had a glass of champagne and I immediately felt not well, Ms. Brock recalled, adding, I thought my drink had been spiked. According to the New York Times reporting, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein attended parties at each other's homes. The Times reports one of the women, who has never before spoken publicly about the experience, told the Times that Mr. Epstein had coerced her into attending 4 parties at Mr. Epstein's home. Mr. Trump attended all 4, the woman said. At 2 of them, she said, Mr. Epstein directed her to have sex with other male guests. In an email among those released by Congress in November, Mr. Epstein boasted that he gave Mr. Trump a 20-year-old woman whom Mr. Epstein dated in the 1990s. In a 2010 deposition, Mr. Epstein was asked if he had ever socialized with Mr. Trump with girls under 18, and he did more than 3 dozen times during the deposition. Mr. Epstein invoked his constitutional right not to answer. At one of those parties, here's how Jeffrey Epstein introduced himself. Quote, I'm Jeffrey. I'm Don's best friend. That's how Jeffrey Epstein introduced himself to a beauty pageant contestant at one of Donald Trump's hotels. That contestant, Beatrice Kuhl, told the New York Times, quote, one of Mr. Trump's employees asked her to meet privately with him in a suite upstairs. Almost as soon as she arrived, Ms. Kuhl said, Mr. Trump began groping her, kissing her, and trying to lift her dress. I yelled, I screamed, I pushed him, she said. He didn't want to give up. She said she was withholding some details of what happened because she had been subject to anonymous threats. Ms. Kuhl also provided the Times with pictures of documents corroborating her participation in the pageant and of herself with Mr. Trump. So that is a case of sexual assault by Donald Trump that has not previously been reported, that was reported there by the New York Times and not denied by Donald Trump when given an opportunity by the New York Times.
The DOJ is so frantic to dismiss new reporting about Donald Trump's relationship with Epstein and the crimes that they committed alongside each other that they put out a post this morning saying anything that's going to come out in these Epstein documents doesn't implicate Donald Trump. And it's all fabricated. None of it's real. The DOJ, the Department of Justice, posted that about the President of the United States. Have they posted that about any other political or public figure? Of course not. They are only bringing more attention to this, and they are only causing greater problems for Donald Trump. But because they realize that we will not stop talking about it, I guess they're just gonna continue to push forward and try to cover this up. The most recent example of this, with that post, is so obvious and so poorly done that it just makes clear why we need to continue to investigate and call for transparency, especially when we are seeing Donald Trump implicated once again, not just alongside Epstein, but alongside Maxwell. And it provides so much important context for how we've gotten to this point where she is in a luxury resort. And it's because of this right here. A DOJ email says, Trump flew on Epstein's plane with Maxwell and Epstein at least 8 times in 1993 to 1996, cases that were previously unreported. One of 2 of the flights were women who would be possible witnesses in a Maxwell case. Donald Trump was flying with just Ghislaine Maxwell on Jeffrey Epstein's plane with women described as possible witnesses. Now, I don't know if that could be because they were victims of Epstein, once again disproving this point. Ghislaine Maxwell having perjured herself and saying, "Oh, Donald Trump was never around victims. Donald Trump was never around anyone who Epstein abused. Donald Trump was a perfect gentleman. He never even stopped in the house. Apparently, he was on the plane. So that's indisputable. But what's also important and interesting to me here is that I think a lot of the conversation around Epstein and the connection to Ghislaine Maxwell has been, oh, okay, well, obviously, Donald Trump is just trying to shut up Ghislaine Maxwell as it relates to the crimes that he committed alongside Epstein. But what about the crimes he committed alongside Ghislaine Maxwell? She's not just in prison for orchestrating Epstein's crimes. I think that's something that we lose sight of sometimes, believing that she was simply just an accomplice or a paper pusher or someone who was, moving around the schedule. That's just not true. Ghislaine Maxwell herself is a sex criminal. It is why it is even more insane that she was moved to a low-security prison, something that is not allowed of sex criminals like herself. So Ghislaine Maxwell, a witness with Donald Trump on the plane in which they were traveling with, might have been one of the victims of the abuse that we saw from Ghislaine Maxwell. And so Donald Trump was involved with that. Was he possibly involved in the abuse? Was he then going on to try to silence this person? Was Donald Trump and his public standing used as a threat to keep this person quiet, not speaking out against Ghislaine Maxwell, not testifying potentially in court? Was Donald Trump involved in any witness tampering? These are all questions we continue to not have answers to. But every time we ask a question like that, no matter how dark it is, it seems like the answer is yes. Donald Trump was involved in all of these things. Even from prison, Ghislaine Maxwell is still incriminating Donald Trump and showing how close their ties are. And I think that is the important takeaway here, that Trump was not just involved with Jeffrey Epstein, but he was involved in this entire network of abuse. When we talk about the powerful men who ran alongside Epstein, we have to keep in mind that what Kash Patel said about there being a no other young girls traffic, that it was just a one-man operation. It is a claim that he is using to obfuscate and to cover up the rest of the cabal of criminals. Because when we start to unlock these other accomplices, when we start to see who the other associates are, these are individuals who could give us more insight into Donald Trump's crimes and into his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. That is the transparency that we're looking for. It's not just about Donald Trump. It certainly is to an extent, given that he's the most powerful man in the world and he's using that power to cover up. But it's also about finding the other associates. And every time you see another financial record that is uncovered, another financial institution that covered for Epstein, it gives us more information, more connections, and more people who can go on the record and share what they saw. Jeffrey Epstein said that Donald Trump was grabbing young women. He was grabbing girls, teenagers, children. We don't think that the same little girls that Ghislaine Maxwell was abusing, Trump could have as well. That's what this circle was. And the cover-up is just so clear at this point. Ari Milber broke down the criminality of it right here.
We are discussing and reporting, of course, the Trump DOJ's minimal and often redacted release of the Epstein files. They have violated the law. And this is a time where it is important to speak clearly with one voice about what we know. That doesn't mean screaming opinions from the rafters about every politician. It does mean telling you what's actually happening. Your government is hiding this sex trafficker's files after both claiming to release them, claiming that was the plan, then signing a law with a deadline to release them, and now, as of Friday, breaking that law. This is bringing on major heat, warnings from lawmakers, including some Republicans, threats about what they will do with their lawful power to make the government of Donald Trump follow the law. That's been an issue in more than one category this year, more than one department, but this is a big one. Tonight, we will also break down some of what we learned from Friday's release, because as I've told you, on the one hand, there's a huge cover-up. On the other hand, there has been progress. This push and what the survivors demanded has at least led to some selective disclosures. And so we will show you some of what matters about that later. While the top story, the most substantive, important thing going on here is your government's cover-up. Today, top Senate Democrat Schumer says they are looking to take legal action immediately to address what the DOJ is doing. Two House lawmakers who wrote this legislation say the DOJ must release all the files or they will hold the Attorney General in contempt.
There are several ways to get at this. Some take longer, some are shorter. The quickest way, and I think the most expeditious way to get justice for these victims is to bring inherent contempt against Pam Bondi. And that doesn't require going through the courts. And give her, and basically Ro Khanna and I are talking about and drafting that right now.
We only need the House for inherent contempt, and we're building a bipartisan coalition, and it would fine Pam Bondi for every day that she's not releasing these documents.
That's a Republican and a Democrat explaining one way.
These people are criminals. And everyone, not just Pam Bondi, but everyone at the DOJ should be held accountable. This is not a moment in which we can just decide after this is all done. We move on. There needs to be real accountability. There needs to be real accountability. And everyone at the DOJ should be well aware of that right now. If you want to obstruct justice, just know what is coming. We are going to continue to call these people out. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. Leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting. Y'all happy holidays. And until next time, I'll see you soon.